Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Thank you very much. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 3, text 32. This verse was connected with the previous one, text 31, and in these two verses Krishna emphasizes the superlative importance of his instructions regarding prescribed duties, and the specific fact that if one follows these instructions faithfully without envy, he becomes free from bondage. And so this second verse continues that theme, and it specifically mentions, in the purport at least, something called the vacant heart. The verse is Ye tu etat avasuyanto Na anutishtanti me matam sarva jnana vimudhan sthan vidhi nashtan achetasa. So first Krishna said, one who shradhavanta anasuyanta, who is faithful and without envy. Now he speaks of the converse, the opposite, that those, too, however, out of envy, suyanta, abhyasuyanta, na anutishtanti, do not perform, do not act upon me matam, my instructions. So the previous person becomes free from all bondage. This person becomes completely befooled in his endeavors and in his knowledge. Sarva jnana vimudhan sthan and nashtan. He is ruined in all respects. One is completely benefited and one is completely lost. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. There's only one word that, although it kind of covers in their endeavors for perfection, the word was achetasa, means who are without Krishna consciousness. It's another qualifier, another decoration for the person, another description of how sad is his situation. This out of envy, disregarding the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, specifically the teachings given in this third chapter, about performing one's prescribed duties. But as devotees, it also talks about disregarding our own devotional service. Our own devotional service. Because prescribed duties are a preliminary form of pure devotional service. That's what we're learning here. The other significance is that the essence of prescribed duties is the fact that they're given by Krishna. Etat anutishtanti. Anutishtanti. I have established them. I have set them in motion. I have put this law into motion, into effect. And so to disregard Krishna's instructions is not without consequence. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, this idea of certainly punishment means it's inescapable. It will happen. There's no if or doubt about it. There's no probability. It's a fact. It's a foregone conclusion. So it behooves us, it's in our interest to be conversant with these instructions. Now somebody may plead, well, what about people who don't know? I mean, it's one thing to neglect when you know an order, an instruction, but what if you don't know? Naturally you will neglect. But the consequence is still there. The example is given of a child touching fire. The child doesn't know fire burns, but nonetheless it will burn, even though he doesn't know. So we don't know the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, but neglecting them, we suffer the consequences, inescapably. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self. So here's another point. It's one thing to be ignorant, but you're also being disobedient. In other words, part of obedience is to find out. Is to find out and then to follow. And to say that I didn't find out, therefore I didn't know, then you're punishable for not finding out. It's not actually a good position. Many people think it's somehow it exempts them. It's a get out clause. But actually ignorance is not a very good position to be in. Is ignorant of his own self, of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead. Now this is interesting, due to a vacant heart. But first I want to focus on the fact that Prabhupada says a string of things. He is ignorant of 4 things. Of his own self, of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is translating that phrase, Sarva Jnana Vimudhan. Sarva Jnana. He is not ignorant in one area and enlightened in others. He is ignorant in all areas. Why? Just because he neglected these teachings given by Krishna. It is so consequential. It is in the interest of the living entity to not be in this position, to safeguard. This is what human life is for. Now, so somebody says, well, isn't that being a bit draconian? Isn't it a bit extreme? Isn't it a bit vindictive? No, because actually, without Krishna consciousness, it's called animal life. Animal life means you're ruined. There is no higher dimension in animal life. So a human who has this dimension missing, therefore this part due to a vacant heart, he has this facility that he had given is vacant, it's empty, it's not there. Then he is an animal, because the animal already is in that condition. So there is no point in trying to glorify a polished animal life and to think that is some or other better than a normal animal. There is no substantial difference, or in one manner of speaking, no material difference. Material being substantial, not material as in against spiritual. So this is being described nicely by the word vacant heart. Very interesting use of words and meaning. The meaning is very interesting. So that means envy of the Lord is tantamount to being disobedient of the Lord, disregarding Bhagavad Gita. And that is tantamount to having a vacant heart, having no higher dimension in life than an animal. Therefore, meaning because of a vacant heart, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. Very interesting conclusion. Therefore, there is no hope. Nashtan, that completely ruined, lost. In other words, Krishna is not just using bombastic words. You know, there is a sequence. It's a meaningful statement. It's actually more terrifying in its truth than the use of the language. The truth is very severe, and the truth is real. It is happening, and we are subject to this truth. We are subject, and therefore it behooves us to not be envious of the Lord, to not be disobedient, and not to be a pure person, a pure animal, a person without a higher dimension of listening to Krishna. Okay, text 33. Here, the Lord, He does a comparison. On the one hand, that if we adjust our life according to our nature, do prescribed duties according to our nature, it's very useful to everyone. And whereas if we repress that nature, it's literally useless to everyone or anyone. Sadrisham cheshtate swasya prakrite jnanavan api prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. So sadrisham, accordingly, equally, befittingly, suitably, appropriately, cheshtate, who endeavors, makes an effort, tries, swasya, by his own prakriti, his own nature, even a man of knowledge, jnanavan api, acts according to his own nature. So in other words, nobody is exempt from working with his nature. It's described that to the point Lord Brahma is not exempt. He works according to the nature he has acquired. That's how he works. It's so powerful, it's whole, that nobody is exempt. So this kind of talk sometimes where one's nature is belittled and described as something insignificant is actually without a basis. The opposite is true. This nature is so powerful that nobody is exempt, all the way to Lord Brahma. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? So, repressing that nature accomplishes nothing. I mean, you can do it, you can go against it, but there is no benefit from it. Not that there may be some benefit, there is no benefit. This ties in with extended topics like, well, what about all this advancement of modern science and technology, airplanes and telecommunications over long distances? But ask yourself this question: what is the essential difference in anybody's life? Are people not growing old now thanks to this technology? Are they not getting disease? Are they not dying? All of it is happening. So it's actually just toy. It's just a child feels a sense of achievement just playing around. No consequence. In essence, there is no significant difference to anybody's life. But there is a sense within that sphere of temporary condition, one is thinking is relatively better than another condition. But it's of no consequence. Now, on the converse, Krishna is taking the view that instead of being foolish and fooling around, if you focus on your material propensity and you engage that, you work with that, then actually a person makes a lot of progress. Again, let's use the same argument. Will he become free from disease, old age, and death? That's what I just said about the other lifestyle. And the answer is yes. That is what you do get. You get freedom. It's not childish, it's not foolish. You distance yourself from the bodily concept of life. You become free from the body. You become free from the influence of the modes of nature by engaging your propensity the way Krishna has outlined, in the form of yajna, in the form of sacrifice to please Krishna. Srila Prabhupada writes, unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7:14, which, if you're keeping up with your knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Yesha Gunamai, Mama Maya Duratteya, Mameva Ye Prapatyate, Maya Metam Tarantite. So, Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante, those who surrender to Krishna, who act on the platform of Krishna consciousness, they become free from the influence. They cross over this influence of material nature, which is difficult to cross over. Okay. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. So we mentioned this before, that earlier Krishna gave knowledge of the soul and the body. And now, how does that make a difference in our life? Is because one adopts this path of performing his prescribed duties for the sake of Krishna. That's different from a person who just has theoretical knowledge, who just thinks he's learning, who thinks he knows things, but he doesn't live by this understanding. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature, which they are unable to surpass. So, there's no point in just living a life of intellectual indulgence, just talking about things, having ideas. Because even a person who does that is still subject to the modes of nature. If Brahma is subject, certainly the person who is idle talk, intellectualism, is also under the modes. That means it's the same as the animal. Your condition is the same. So, in other words, a real spiritualist is a person who overcomes his modes of nature by real surrender to Lord Krishna, by real Krishna consciousness, by really applying himself to this path. Because remember, the path of prescribed duties is not dictated by the body, as in sense gratification. It's dictated by the body, as in your modes of nature, but we're using them to serve Krishna. The person who is in the bodily concept of life might talk so many things, he makes no progress, whereas a person who actually uses his body, uses his material condition, as a Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra, as a Brahmachari, Vanaprastha, Grihastha, Sannyasi, he makes progress. That's the point. He overcomes. We should tie in this issue the problem of the Shudra, because always they're thinking I'm victimized here. I'm penalized in the system of Vedic culture. I'm at the lower rung. And the women, we're completely lower than the low. But here's the point. According to this verse, Krishna is saying, if you're engaging in your prescribed duty, by that duty you're overcoming the modes of nature. Especially if your duty is of such a quality that it has surrender to Krishna. And you can do that as a Shudra, you can do that as a woman. You can do that as a Brahmin, Kshatriya. But you have to do it through your duty. And like I said, in the ISKCON language, you can do it through your prescribed devotional service. So therefore, this is good for everybody. The learned and the not so learned. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. See, here's the thing. Why is it a person who understands many things about material nature is no better than an ignorant person? Because that knowledge doesn't actually shift or overcome your condition of being under the modes of nature. It doesn't actually change it. It's a bit like if pressed for an example, Prabhupada would give the example of a first-class prisoner. Right? You have a second-class prisoner, third class. So you've elevated yourself being a first-class prisoner. but you're still a prisoner. You're still subject to the laws of the prison. You're subject. So you might, in material estimation, you might seem like you have a higher status than the lesser beings. In English they have, words called plebeian, or pleb for short. The rank and the file. You might think you're the lord, you're the aristocracy, blue blood. But really, you're still under the modes of nature. So the measure of advancement is not some material estimation, but the fact that you actually overcome your modes. And that requires focusing on your prescribed duty, rather than artificially trying to adopt the status of a higher class of people, their manners and their mores and whatever they get up to. So one's prescribed duty has so much merit, so much. It's so valuable, so important. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. So that's very black and white. Don't give up your duties unless you are fully. What would fully mean? 80%? What's fully? 90? 100%. That's good. No margin of error. In science, in laboratory, they'll have an answer, plus and minus. There's a range. It might be within this. Here it means plus and minus 0. 100% plus and minus 0. No, 100%. Any doubt, do your duties. You can't go wrong. So, no margin of error. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. So actually, here's an interesting conclusion from all this. This ends the purport to this text 33, but here's an interesting conclusion. You know how it is that people join, they're engaged in some kind of menial services, sweeping and cleaning, and most menial of all is having to obey. Just having to obey, whatever it is. But here's the point from all this discussion. That's the most redeeming quality of Krishna consciousness. That's your most valuable asset. That is what you want, actually. When you become a so-called senior devotee who has not got this menial services anymore, you're in a sad state. You're actually deprived. This menial condition is a very safe condition. It's not one you should aspire to leave behind. Now this also ties in with another topic that sometimes, and I'll put it to you whether you agree or not. You've heard how sometimes in the scriptures and Srila Prabhupada urge us to go back to Godhead, yes? Urges us. This is not our home, we should go back home, back to Godhead. But at the same time we say, Mama Janmani Janmanishware, repeated birth and death. make me your servant. So, we think they're contradictory, right? One is saying you should aspire to go back to God. The other is saying, I don't want even liberation. I want to stay here and repeated birth and death. So the point is this: they're actually synonymous in this way, that the essence of going back to Godhead is to become established in our pure condition of servitorship to Krishna. So the person who aspires to perform his prescribed duty, his pure devotional service, is the same as the person who goes back to God. Is the same. That condition is the same. So the essence of this going back to God is, the essence of having Krishna's devotional service birth after birth is this, what Krishna has just taught us, to obey without envy all these instructions, not to resent them, not to aspire to be free from this. That would be a mistake. Our happy condition of life is one in which Krishna always tells us what to do. And we are doing it. But in the beginning, because we are distant from Krishna, our first step to obeying Krishna is to perform our prescribed duties as dictated by Varna Ashram. That's the point. So this reconciles all these inconsistencies or incompatibilities, because there are no incompatibilities. It's a question of being able to understand. I'll repeat, it is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. So that's the other point. Fortunate is the person who has superior training. Now, just to delve on that for a few moments, a question may be, well, I don't have superior training. I don't have that facility. Then really, the onus is on us, the responsibility is with us to find that person. That's important. From the moment of realizing the importance of this path of life, we should strive to find a person who can train us. We should strive. It's like everything else. Actually, the odds of succeeding in sense gratification are very remote, but it doesn't stop people from trying. They try nonetheless. The chances are so remote, but out of 7 billion people, how many are trying? All 7 billion are trying. All are trying, without exception. But the fortunate soul is the person who tries for spiritual life. The odds are not as great against getting success in this life. They're very high. But we must try. There is no odds for a person who doesn't even try. There's no chance. There's no possibility. But should a person try, then through this path of Krishna consciousness, which at this point is being described in the form of prescribed duties, any sincere soul, be he even a Shudra, be he even in the body of a woman, can have success. Now, I just want to delve a few moments on this last point I made. Be he a Shudra and be he in the body of a woman. Materially, without Krishna consciousness, those are debilitating situations. They put you in a lower status. Now somebody says, well, no, that may be in India, but not in England, not in America. No, that's all rubbish. That's just marketing department. The truth is very different. In the material world, there are differentiations of lower and higher, of being disadvantaged, because karmas are different. So you cannot artificially equalize these differences. Therefore, Prabhupada would say United Nations is a failure, because on the material platform you cannot unite or equalize everybody. Nations are different. Races are different. Karmas are different. Two brothers are different. Two brothers are different. Their karmas are different. So, on the material platform, this idea of utopian equality doesn't exist. But spiritually, it's possible. There is no disadvantage. Even if you are in a materially disadvantaged position, spiritually there is no disadvantage. There is no bar. There is no disqualification. But materially there is. It's funny now, speaking of differences, so in the last few decades, a new phenomena started, which is, so everyone recognizes discrimination, right? Like against the blacks, against women, against the lower, what do we call it? The scheduled classes. Scheduled classes in India. So in the last few decades, they have what is called positive discrimination. In other words, if you're not in one of these, you will be discriminated against. It's funny, right? In other words, if these classes fail an exam, they are promoted. If they fail, they are promoted. Good luck to the guy who is operated by that doctor. I mean, you know, this is called positive discrimination. So the world is going to hell in a handbasket. The expression is it's going there very fast. Handbasket travel very fast. So it's perverted. So it's for those who are too much aware of the material life out there, they'll find all this very difficult. Superior training, you know who I am? Everything is based on this foolish arrogance and not acknowledging the reality that I am born in the darkness of ignorance. I need a spiritual master who will open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Now, sometimes some people say that beginning of class, Om Jnana, but you have to have somebody who did open your eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Did your ignorance go? If it didn't go, it didn't happen. There's no point just reciting these things. You have to go find a person. It's no point a blind man saying, a doctor cured my eyes. You're still blind. Go and find somebody. go and fix it. Then, with or without chanting the verse, it will be self-evident. It will not be in doubt. Yes, this person had superior training. His eyes have been opened by the torchlight of knowledge, not by the torchlight of speculation. Knowledge and speculation are not the same. So these are a few thoughts, few things to meditate upon. I just want to finish by saying that I cannot tell you enough that Srila Prabhupada, he did not repeat himself ever. And though it goes against all our own experience, I'll tell you why our experience is different. Rupa Goswami says that I need many thousands of tons and many millions of years to properly relish the holy name. We think, well, I did 2 hours of chanting, that's more than enough. Why is that difference there? Because he himself explains, Rupa Goswami, that we have the disease of jaundice. We're eating sugar but it tastes bitter. Sugar is not bitter, but our experience is bitter. Our experience of the holy name is different. Prabhupada is speaking again and again from Bhagavad Gita, but I'm already tired of Bhagavad Gita when I haven't even read it completely once. I actually know people who are tired of Bhagavad Gita and haven't read it once. One time somebody said, I know what you're going to say. I said, I don't know what I'm going to say. So you're going to say about Bhagavad Gita. But he hasn't heard Bhagavad Gita. So our experience is because of jaundice. This jaundice, what it is referring to, is we're deeply in the mode of ignorance. So we can't experience what a person who is not in ignorance is experiencing. We can't. So when Srila Prabhupada is speaking again and again on Krishna consciousness, we think he is repeating, but he's never repeating. It's Nitya Nava Yovanam. Nava Yovanam. It is ever fresh. But so here I want to finish on a happy note. What's the cure? The only cure is don't give up taking the sugar. It takes time. So if you don't give up, even though you're thinking, oh, it's bitter, I need to relax. Relax means TV, movie, right? Relax. That's relax. But even if you're doing that, but don't give up the program, the sadhana. One day it would not be bitter. That is a fact. But if you give up, it's over. So that's a happy note, right? For those who don't give up. Thank you very much. Text 34 tomorrow.